In the early 1970s, Joe Coffey, a New York detective working under the city's longtime DA Frank S. Hogan, uncovered a plot involving a Genovese crime family soldier colluding with others home and abroad to sell black market stolen or counterfeit securities worth $14.5 million and $3.7 million in counterfeit bonds. The case was chronicled in Richard Hammer's 1982 bestseller The Vatican Connection and was the basis for Puzo and Coppola's first draft of what became The Godfather Part 3. One of the swindlers evidently cultivated powerful relationships within the Vatican. Austrian con man Leopold Ledl allegedly gained the trust of octogenarian French Cardinal Eugene Tisserand. How did such a con artist as Ledl gain access to such a venerable prince of the church? A friend of Ledl knew someone who for a certain price could dress up Ledl with the kind of credentials one needed in order to rub elbows with Vatican hierarchy. Impressive sounding degrees, diplomatic titles, passports, documents showing ownership in shipping lines, and honor member in esteemed chivalric orders around the world. Of course, none of these things were legitimate. They were worth no more than the paper they were printed on. But that was the business of the man in Toronto who supplied Ledl with that kind of identity. Earl England James, the Mad Bishop, tied to Jack Martin and David Ferry, knew a lot of people. Nothing was beneath him for the right price, even coups. According to the account Ledl later told Coffey and the FBI, Cardinal Tisserandt lamented in an after-dinner conversation with his new friend Ledl about the shrinking size of the Vatican coffers, preventing church funds from reaching far-flung missions and supporting Italy's Christian democratic movement. According to Ledl, Tisserand wondered aloud if the Austrian might happen to come upon first-class securities of American companies, possibly even counterfeit in the ballpark of, say, about $950 million. Such a number would alleviate the financial woes with interest, you understand, Tisserant explained to Ledl. The fake securities would be used as collateral for dollar-for-dollar financing, so when the Vatican would loan or invest, it could make billions based on that collateral of phony stocks. Those involved would pay out $625 million to the crooks, with a kickback of $150 million. The Bank of Italy and the Vatican Bank would be the two financial channels. At least that's how Ledl laid it out. Tisserand is an interesting character to suggest such a scheme. For more than 2 decades, he was secretary of the Congregation for the Oriental Churches, which made him the chief Vatican authority next to the Pope of Eastern Catholic Churches and the Catholic Church in regions such as Egypt, Cyprus, Turkey, Greece, the Middle East, the Ukraine, Hungary, and Bulgaria. In short, Tisserand would have been deeply invested in anti-Bolshevik, anti-communist initiatives. In other words, he would have been extremely knowledgeable of the movements of the white Russian community. Furthermore, as chairman of the Council of the Presidency, Tisserand was a prominent figure at the Second Vatican Council. Only the Pope held more authority. Among the objectives of the Council, held between 1962 and 1965, was to increase dialogue with non-Catholic Christian churches. This was underscored by inviting non-Catholic representatives to be observers to the proceedings. According to the Louisville Courier-Journal of September 23, 1964, a delegate from the Russian American Orthodox Catholic Church arrived in Rome to be such an observer for the discussions related to Eastern Orthodox churches, the Most Reverend Christopher Maria Stanley, whom Earl England James consecrated bishop. However, Stanley's name does not appear at all in the official record of ecumenical observers at Vatican II. The article was likely disinformation meant to make Stanley's church appear legitimate. In any event, Tisserand died in early 1972, but the plan he initially pitched continued. Ledl-related. In Turin, a meeting took place to test the quality of the securities. Newly appointed president of the Vatican Bank, the American Archbishop from Cicero, Illinois, outside Chicago, Paul Marcinkus, arrived in a BMW. Tisserand's former assistant, whose name has never been unmasked, was there. So was a flamboyant Monsignor Alberto Barbieri. The $14.5 million in forged securities was delivered as a deposit to prove the Vatican's complicity Ledl produced for the American investigators a letter from the Sacra Congregazione dei Religiosi dated June 29, 1971, detailing the purchase plan of the securities over 5 installments. The signature at the bottom is illegible with no typed name under it. The document appears legitimate, and on the face of it certainly confirms Ledl's tale, but it is also just vague enough to question its veracity. Still, it was enough for the FBI to make moves, including seeking out their fellow American, Paul Marcinkus. They offered immunity deals to some of the conspirators, hopscotching Europe to corner others, with Leopold Ledl in Vienna their ultimate target. Securities were stolen from New York offices and international mail shipments from the U.S. Treasury, IBM, and Coca-Cola. Counterfeit bonds for Chrysler, Pan Am, AT&T, and GE were created. Later, when Joe Coffey, now teamed with the FBI, rounded up their suspects, they were surprised to find Leopold Ledl already in a Vienna prison for fraud and extortion, selling fake honorary consul titles to the East African Kingdom of Burundi, one for $35,000 and another that came with an honorary doctorate, price $100,000. By happenstance, Ledl supposedly met Mombasa IV of Burundi, exiled to Switzerland when Hutu rebels overthrew the monarchy in October 1965. Mombasa IV was hoping to wrest power from the rebels and put his son Natari V on the throne. Mombasa offered to make Ledl an honorary consul at a discounted price, along with the rank of diplomat and personal financial counselor to the exiled royal house. Ledl accepted and helped incite a coup to fulfill Mombasa's goal. The honorary doctorate Ledl packaged with the consul title came from Earl England James's, the National University of Canada. Ledl had met James by way of an unnamed Hungarian acquaintance and purported Knight of Malta. Ledl tells us James' personal motto was, "As long as you live, you have to live." However, it is important to point out that in the world of fake bishops, fake schools, and fake chivalry orders, Ledl's acquaintance was likely associated with a pseudo-order pretending to be the real Orders of Malta. This could be any number of individuals, but was probably Count Dr. Pericles Voltsus Vortsitz, aide-de-camp to Governor of Louisiana, Honorary Attorney General of Louisiana, and Ambassador of King Natari V of Burundi, among other fraudulent titles, namely Grand Master of the Sovereign Order of St. Denis of Zante. Voltsus was also a member of the Sons of the American Revolution and a 32nd degree Mason in the Parthenon Lodge, number 1101 of New York. Sir James was not at all stingy, Ledl writes in Per Canto del Vaticano. For every doctoral title sold by the National University of Canada, in fact, James paid the sum of $2,000 into the bank account, quote, for the coup d'etat of King Natari. That is quite revealing on James's practices. It begs the question, what other coups did Earl England James financially support? The investigators then worked channels to arrange a meeting with Marcinkus. It was an unprecedented and delicate matter to approach, needing help from New York's Cardinal Cook to arrange introductions. Remember, they had no jurisdiction in the Vatican, its own country. The only way to get a meeting with Marcinkus would be if the Vatican allowed them in as a courtesy. Eventually, in April 1973, William Ehrenwald and other American investigators met with the Holy See's Department of State and reticent members of his staff. They were stonewalled. It was essentially the same with Marcinkus 3 days later. Look, I don't have to tell you anything. But I will, because I want to cooperate with the FBI. Marcinkus dismissed the allegations. He denied meeting Ledl. Marcinkus sent an associate of Ledl, Mario Feligni, the self-proclaimed Count of San Francisco, only sought to solicit the Vatican Bank in exorbitant deals. The feds left. While they did not have evidence to indict Marcinkus, a federal grand jury in New York indicted 16 Americans and Europeans for stock fraud, including Vincent Rizzo, Ricky Jacobs, a notorious dealer in counterfeit securities, Count Feligni in Italy, and of course, Leopold Ledl. As I have called this Vatican Connection the sequel to the assassination of President Kennedy 10 years earlier. Ricky Jacobs, owner of a Santa Monica card club, called Friends with Johnny Roselli, was fingered in the Beverly Hills Friars Club swindle of the 1960s, in which Roselli and Jacobs rigged games using an elaborate system of electronic devices and coded signals. In 1 year, the club's exclusive clientele lost about $400,000, cumulatively about $3.3 million in today's money. The Italian Parliament's Commission on the Illegal Masonic Lodge, Propaganda Due P2, the powerful anti-communist Italian state within a state controlled by Lucio Gelli, stated Jacobs was friends and accomplices of Tampa boss Santo Traficante and manager of Meyer Lansky's Havana and Miami holdings. But in addition, based on surveillance photographs taken in the lobby of a hotel in Munich in 1971 during a conference for international bankers, Jacobs was seen conversing with then U.S. Secretary of the Treasury, John Connally. Prior to joining the Nixon administration, Connally was governor of Texas and fellow motorcade passenger. As we all know, after his time at Treasury, he became one of Nixon's closest advisors, even considered to replace disgraced VP Spiro Agnew in 1974. Under Presidents Nixon and Ford, Connally was a member of the President's Foreign Intelligence Advisory Board. Connally was indicted for allegedly accepting $10,000 in bribes from the Associated Milk Producers. He was acquitted, but his presidential hopes were dashed. However, investigators were told by the top brass that looking into whatever ties Connally had with Ricky Jacobs was unthinkable. Dominic Mantell was another one of the 16 indicted in the Vatican Connection, originally part of the Magaddino family in Buffalo. Mantell was transferred to Tampa under the protection of Santo Traficante. He once informed the FBI on Traficante associate Frank Cowboy Ippolito. In 1992, the DOJ was notified in a letter by prison inmate Thomas White III that he overheard Ippolito, Traficante, and lawyer Frank Regano in 1963 discussing killing Kennedy. Regano was also Jimmy Hoffa's lawyer. In his 1994 memoir, Bob Lawyer, Regano said he passed a message from Hoffa to Traficante, quote, "You won't believe this, but he wants you to kill John Kennedy. He wants you to get rid of the president right away." Later, Regano said that Traficante, on his deathbed in 1987, confessed that he and Carlos Marcello did indeed follow through on Hoffa's little favor. Let us stress again that Mantell was part of the Magaddino family in Buffalo. Keep it going. It has been brought to my attention that in the flurry of the recent Epstein Files release, the DOJ released the entire case file of Buffalo crime lord Stefano Magaddino. On October 31st, 1963, Magaddino had a conversation with his son, Peter, who said the president should drop dead, adding they should kill the whole family, the mother and father, too. We come almost full circle with Chicago gangland boss Sam Giancana. After his murder in 1975, police found a framed photo of Giancana with Pius XII. Giancana's tomb, an enormous family mausoleum, occupies a piece of Mount Carmel Catholic Cemetery, Al Capone's final resting place. In Double Cross, co-authored by Giancana's godson with Giancana's brother Chuck, we read about Sam's apparent closeness with longtime Chicago Cardinal Archbishop Samuel Stritch. Stritch, according to the book, recommended a young priest, son of a Lithuanian window washer from Cicero, Paul Marcinkus, to work in the Vatican. Giancana employed a priest, appropriately named Father Cash, not only as a local courier, but also to launder his money through the Vatican Bank, where Marcinkus was conveniently placed to wash the funds. In the little-known book Citizen Spy, author Robert W. Morgan claims one Fred Kerr, associate of Meyer Lansky and Arizona crime boss Joe Bonanno, confessed how the money laundering process through the Vatican Bank during the tenure of John Cardinal Cody, Archbishop of Chicago from 1965 until his death in 1982. Prior to this esteemed role, Cody was coadjutor of the Archdiocese of New Orleans. It was Cody who informed his fellow churchmen in Rome of JFK's assassination back in the States. Cody and other bishops were attending the second session of Vatican II when the Catholic president was assassinated. Kerr insists both Marcinkus and Roberto Calvi at the Banco Ambrosiano, of which the Vatican was the largest shareholder, were deeply involved in and fully aware of the Mafia's laundering practices. Calvi consistently funneled money out of Italy to Caribbean shell companies and Panamanian banks Marcinkus and he created. This not only hurt the economy of Italy, but it inflated share prices and was based entirely on unsecured loans. At last, with the dollar rising, Calvi could not plug a gigantic hole of $1.2 billion that had gone missing from his Banco Ambrosiano. Despite assurances from Marcinkus with so-called letters of comfort, there would be no bailout coming from the Holy See. So Calvi fled Milan and Italy. He needed a miracle, fast. According to Ledl, Calvi went to see him in Vienna. "Marcinkus wants my head," Ledl claimed. Calvi said to him, an exchange chronicled in Ledl's book, Peccato del Vaticano. Calvi wanted some sort of dirt on Marcinkus as potential blackmail. "How were you able to clear yourself from Vatican ties?" Calvi wanted to know. Ledl said he simply had an insurance policy, documents implicating the Vatican in the questionable financial undertakings. Seeing Calvi fearing for not only his life, but the life of his family, Ledl told a prosecutor in 1988 that if Calvi also had such documents proving the Vatican's role in forgeries and frauds on a massive level, that would be enough for Marcinkus to back off. But the letters of comfort Calvi had were offset by another letter Marcinkus demanded of Calvi, one that cleared the Vatican of any financial responsibility. Calvi, in essence, was trapped. Ledl and Calvi chatted for about a half hour. Then Calvi left. His handlers brought him to London. On the morning of June 17, 1982, a postal worker on his way to Newark noticed Roberto Calvi's body hanging from scaffolding under Blackfriars Bridge. The subsequent collapse of Banco Ambrosiano was the largest banking failure in history at the time. And while the Vatican agreed to pay $250 million to Ambrosiano's creditors, Marcinkus, like Connolly, was untouchable. He remained within Vatican City State until 1990, when he retired to Sun City, Arizona, Joe Bonanno's territory, by the by. Marcinkus died in 2006 at age 84. In one of those exotic moments of life that will be remembered by no one but me, a couple of years ago, my then 1-year-old daughter and I found ourselves in Sun City, 14 miles northwest of Phoenix. We were hunting the ghost of Marcinkus. Marcinkus lived in one of the ubiquitous cottages off Sun City Country Club and assisted as a retired priest at St. Clement of Rome on the other side of town. Wandering around the country club, baby in arm, I asked if any of the old-timers remembered the infamous Archbishop. The name didn't register. Let us return to Leopold Ledl. Could it be that he fabricated the entire Vatican Connection in the same way Archbishop Christopher Maria Stanley told his local newspaper he was attending Vatican II? For professional charlatans like Ledl, Stanley, James, it is all about the illusion of legitimacy, to simply fool the target just long enough to achieve whatever the con is. One might recall the modus operandi of Oskar Schindler in Schindler's List. Not the work, the presentation. Skullduggery, blackmail, subterfuge, these are tools straight from the confidence man's utility belt. And if they can fool authorities like the NYPD and FBI and investigative journalists like Richard Hammer, all while selling something out of reach like the Roman Curia in Vatican City, let alone the powerful Vatican Bank, then it is the con artist who prevails, vanishing like the ghost he always was. Remember why Ledl was put in the Austrian prison to begin with. For selling fake honorary consul titles and doctorate degrees. It is not out of the realm of possibility that Ledl forged the story of charming Vatican royalty like Eugene Tisserand. That he, Ledl, Hammer's only source, conveniently claimed that it was the now deceased Tisserant who suggested the securities fraud scheme. Princeton professor Walter F. Murphy, in his review of Hammer's The Vatican Connection in November 1982, doubted Ledl's story, noting Vatican directories made no mention of some of the clerics Ledl mentions, such as Monsignor Alberto Barbieri. Was Ledl holding millions in forged securities and no prospective buyer stringing along his co-conspirators, hoping to position the Vatican Bank, Archbishop Marcinkus, and Cardinal Tisserandt as the patsies in a totally fabricated con? Consider, to make my point clear, the purported photograph of Sam Giancana with His Holiness Pius XII, a commonplace tactic also utilized by Mario Fellini. When investigators searched his premises and went through his safe, they apologized after discovering a signed blessing from Paul VI. Such proof is yet another sleight of hand trick in the world of the hoaxer. My favorite example of this is in Gianni Russo's book Hollywood Godfather, in which the actor who played Carlo Rizzi in The Godfather includes a photograph of himself with quote-unquote Pope John Paul II, but in reality is a lookalike. In fact, it's an obvious pretender who, to me, bears more of a striking similarity to Harvey Keitel than he does to Carol Wojtyla. Besides, for the all-important meeting in which Ledl presents the fake merchandise to Tisserand and to receive payment, Ledl pointedly does not allow Ricky Jacobs and two other conspirators to accompany him. Richard Hammer here. Meanwhile, outside the Vatican walls, Jacobs, Grant, and Ency were growing very nervous as time passed and there was no sign of Ledl or the others. They had seen them walk away, had not seen exactly where they had gone. Because of the spot where they parked, there was an assumption that they had gone into the Banco Spiritus Sanctus and they had not emerged. Was Ledl only appearing to be going into a meeting in the Vatican? After all, he never reemerges, but later meets up with his associates at the Excelsior Hotel near the American Embassy on the other side of the Tiber. The whole scheme, really, was only as good as Ledl's word. In this way, improbable as it might be, Ledl's Vatican Connection fantasy is more akin to the con that was laying the assassination of President Kennedy at the feet of an entirely bemused patsy in Oswald. That both involve Earl England James is just another way of showing the ever-expanding tentacles of the mad bishop.